watching you the other night do very late night coverage of the plane crash that happened in the Washington, D.C. area. I live in Arlington, Virginia. It was something that that happened very near where I live. I think a lot of people are watching right now and trying to make sense of or understand how this could happen twice in 1 week. You are help us understand. They're different plane crashes caused by different things. How are you digesting this? How do you hope people out there who are scared right now are digesting what they're seeing as a second plane crash?
Yeah, look, I think I agree with the idea that the FAA and the NTSB are fantastic. They are the lead agency, not just in America, but often for plane crashes elsewhere in the world, right? We call in their expertise always. So they will get to the bottom of it. And while we do not want to speculate, it's too early. I will tell you these are two very, very different crashes that happen for very different reasons. In Washington at National Airport, what you had is a situation that appears that a plane was hit by something. And at that point, the landing pilots had no ability to do anything about that. That plane went down. The examination there is going to be why the helicopter didn't see them, whether there's enough separation between planes, and there's a lot of stuff, all of which will be investigated and will be changed. The beauty of America is we don't typically have the same plane accident twice. So it will be fixed, which is why lots of people got on airplanes today, and it will be fine. This is a very different situation. The visibility is very low, and when you are trained as a pilot, I often tell people this, you can train somebody to fly a plane in a matter of a few hours. Most pilot training is emergency training, and most of that emergency training is for what happens when you take off and you land. Those are the most dangerous parts of flying. When we're landing on a commercial jet, everybody's checking their phone, you got cell signal, you generally think the flight's over. That's not what the pilot's thinking. When you're taking off on a plane, you're waiting to get up to altitude and be able to do whatever you want to do. That's not what the pilot's thinking. So when something goes wrong with a plane that has taken off from an airport, means they're not at cruising altitude yet, they're not in the clear, they're not in a place where they know there's no other air traffic, that everything can be okay. If you're 10,000 feet or 15,000 feet, or this plane can fly at 30,000 feet, and you lose an engine, you've got the whole world in front of you to figure out a place to land. When you're in this situation, your pilot training kicks in, and the pilot training is first do as little harm as possible. Try to get that plane to the ground as much as you can, turn off your engines and turn off your fuel so that you do not ignite a fire when you land. The fact that this plane went down the way it did means that it lost aerodynamic lift. There was no ability to control that plane after a point. The pilots had no ability to point that plane in the right direction or try and avoid a house or try and avoid a shop. This plane went down because it lost control for a reason we do not know yet, and hopefully we will find out within days or weeks or months. We will find out, and we always do find out. There's enough evidence there. The debris is there. It was close enough to the ground. There would be. What we don't know yet is what the communications were with air traffic control. When coming in and out of any Philadelphia airport, same as New York, there's a centralized air traffic control that gives you the coordinates and what you need to know to get in or out of that area. You're also talking to your local tower. At Philadelphia Northeast, there is a local tower, but that communication will all be recorded. So we will know, and at some point, the pilot, we would assume if they had some altitude, would have declared an emergency. And generally, when you declare an emergency, you state what you believe the emergency is. In a normal circumstance, the air traffic controllers will then tell you, as the plane that's declared an emergency,
on departure,
you have
turn right
priority
heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff, wind 25010. Medevac Med Service 056 affirmative. On departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff. Medevac Med Service 056, contact Philly departure 123.8.
123.8, Mike Tango Sierra 056 Medevac. Thank you, good day.
Medevac Med Service 056, Northeast Tower, contact Philly 123.8. Medevac Med Service Northeast Tower. Medevac Med Service 056, Northeast Tower, you on frequency?
Medevac Mike Tango Sierra 056, Northeast Tower, how do you hear this transmission?
Medevac Med Service 056, Northeast Tower. 560908 Foxtrot Northeast Ground, Roger. Stand by one. I'll get back to you when I can.
Approach to runway 24, what's going on down there?
Position 755. We have a lost aircraft. We're not exactly sure what happened, so we're trying to figure it out. For now, the field is going to be closed, so no inbounds or outbounds probably.
All right, understand. Thank you.
6098 Foxtrot. I'm sure you copied that, but for right now, we're gonna call the field closed. We'll try to get you out here when we can. If we can't, we'll have to take you over to Atlantic. But stand by for now.
Another plane crash in the Northeast this week, this time in Philadelphia. A small jet crashed into a neighborhood just moments after taking off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport, sending a fireball high into the sky on impact. Thanks for joining us for Fox 43 News at 10. I'm Marshall Keeley. We begin with that breaking news out of Philadelphia tonight. The medical transport jet was reportedly carrying a pediatric patient when it crashed less than 3 miles from Northeast Philadelphia Airport, just about 30 seconds after takeoff, rocking the neighborhood and setting nearby homes on fire. Neighbors' doorbell cameras and dash cams from the drivers in the area captured the moment the Learjet 55 went down near Roosevelt Mall in Northeast Philly just after 6 p.m. tonight. And you can see what appears to be the plane streaking into the ground, followed by a massive explosion. And flight data shows the small business type jet climbed to 1,600 feet before quickly disappearing from radar less than a half minute into the flight. The Federal Aviation Administration says 6 people were aboard the plane that was headed for Springfield, Missouri. Medical transport company Jet Rescue Air Ambulance says a crew of 4 were transporting a pediatric medical patient and another passenger at the time of the crash. Tonight, Philadelphia Mayor Sherrell Parker asked for prayers.
As of right now, we have no reports on the number of fatalities. So right now, we're just asking for prayers for any and everyone who may have been affected.
First responders shut down nearby roads as fire crews extinguished debris from the plane, burning cars, and they try to put out multiple house fires in the Ronhurst neighborhood. And in a statement, the transportation company connected to the plane said it could not confirm any survivors. Governor Josh Shapiro arrived at the scene less than an hour ago.
We know that there will be loss in this region, and we want to offer our thoughts and our serious prayers for those who are grieving at this moment.
Fox News reports President Trump has been briefed on the crash by U.S. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy. Trump posted on Truth Social tonight, saying in part, quote, "Our people are totally engaged." The National Transportation Safety Board is already on site handling the investigation into the crash. Stay with us on Fox 43 on air and online, and we'll provide updates.
To a packed Philadelphia neighborhood during the height of the evening rush hour. Good evening to you. I'm Christine Johnson. For the second time in less than 48 hours, investigators are on the scene of a horrific plane crash. Here's what we know right now about the most recent one. It happened around 6 tonight in Northeast Philadelphia. The crash involved a small medical jet with a child patient and 5 others on board. The plane had just taken off from a nearby airport when it went down. It was headed to Missouri. The number of casualties and the cause are not yet known at this time. We do have team coverage of this breaking news story. Let's start with Christine Sloan. She is live near the scene of Philadelphia. Christine.
Well, Christine, that small plane crash has caused havoc in this Northeast Philadelphia neighborhood. You see those police lights behind me? That's the Roosevelt Mall. That is the area where the plane came down near several homes in this neighborhood. You could see those homes on fire earlier tonight. As you said, we are now learning that there was a young girl on that plane who had undergone treatment at Shriners Hospital. She and a family member and 2 doctors were heading back to Missouri when that plane crashed. Disturbing ring camera video shows the Learjet taking a nosedive after 6 o'clock Friday night and exploding into a fireball. You could see a plume of smoke billowing into the sky. Several cars and homes catching fire, and cell phone video showing a massive amount of debris extending across the intersection.
I just see the plane is getting lower and lower and lower. It nipped the house. When it nipped the house, it hit a couple cars. Boom! And into the plaza, into the Dunkin' Donuts, everywhere. I've never seen nothing like that a day in my life.
Our Philadelphia station reporting the Learjet was a medical plane carrying 6 people, including 2 doctors, a young patient, and a family member. The plane headed to Springfield, Missouri, crashing several minutes after taking off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport. The mayor of Philadelphia warning residents to stay home.
If you see debris, call 911. Don't touch anything. This is still an active scene under investigation. We do want to note that several dwellings and vehicles were impacted. So what are we asking you to do for us right now, Philadelphia? We're urging you to please stay away from the scene.
Authorities not confirming if there were any survivors on that plane. We also don't know the extent of injuries on the ground, if there were any fatalities. Of course, this will be investigated by the NTSB and the FAA. Christine?
Christine Sloan, live for us in Philadelphia tonight. Christine, thank you. Let's go now as we are hearing about this tragedy and how it unfolded for air traffic controllers monitoring this flight in Philadelphia. Dick Brennan is in our newsroom with that. Dick?
Christine, this all happened so quickly. And if you listen to the tapes from the tower, it appears controllers who were trying to reach out to the plane quickly lost communication.
Medevac Med Service, Northeast Tower. Medevac Med Service 056, Northeast Tower. You on frequency?
Approach to runway 24. What's going on down there?
Position 765. We have a lost aircraft. We're not exactly sure what happened, so we're trying to figure it out for now.
Now, controllers were repeatedly trying to reach the Learjet, but to no avail. And aviation experts say that likely indicates there was a desperate situation unfolding on board, and in a matter of seconds, it happened, and that the crew would have very little time to react.
There was something very serious happening, something very catastrophic, because unless the pilot was distracted doing something else, usually pilots are going to reply fairly quickly, particularly if they need to read back instructions, if they need to change to a different radio frequency, they're going to do that pretty quickly.
It was a bad scene. I was running around. I gave the shirt off my back to help someone to head laceration because I just didn't want them to bleed out.
Now, the plane was said to be carrying around 7,000 pounds worth of fuel, or approximately 1,000 gallons. And aviation fuel is extremely flammable and can make it very difficult for firefighters trying to put out those flames. Christine, what an awful scene tonight.
It really is, and it just seems like it played out within seconds, Dick.
So quickly, so
yes,
quickly.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that information to us.
Section causing a massive explosion.
Witnesses shared video of the explosion's aftermath. Homes and several vehicles caught on fire as a result of that horrible crash.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Juwan Strader.
And I'm Trina Robinson. We're now learning that 6 people were on board that plane, including a young girl.
And that plane made a stop at the Opelika Executive Airport earlier today. Nico Clemens is live outside that airport with more on what we know this evening. Nico.
Well, you too, the crash has impacted people here in South Florida, especially people who fly out of this airport here in Opelika. And we learned tonight that there was a young girl on this jet who had came to the U.S. for medical care and was returning to Mexico. We know the jet was here in Opelika since yesterday, landed here yesterday, and its company is based out of Mexico and Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport.
Heartbreak and astonishment.
The blast was powerful.
It was shocking to see the trajectory in which the aircraft is coming out of the sky like a missile. That's just so unusual.
A jet crashed Friday night shortly after it left Northeast Philadelphia Airport. Jet Rescue Air Ambulance says 4 crew members and 2 passengers were on board. Hours earlier, the jet was in South Florida at Miami Opelika Executive Airport, an airport Kristen Jern has flown out of before.
My first reaction was, yes, it had to have been something structural with the aircraft.
Jern is a commercial pilot. While she doesn't fly this specific aircraft, a Learjet 55, she knows others who do.
Again, with my peers, we're all a bit stunned and shocked and just scratching our head because it just seems like it had to have either been catastrophic structural failure for an aircraft to behave that way. Again, though, it's really difficult for the footage that we have seen to get a clear picture of the jet. It's really hard to discern whether or not it's truly spinning or if it's coming straight down.
FlightAware shows the jet landed at Opelika Thursday night from Haiti. It left Opelika Friday at noon and landed in Philadelphia a couple hours later. The FAA says the jet was heading to Missouri Friday night before it crashed. The managing director for the jet company says the plane had seasoned pilots, a flight physician, a flight paramedic, a child patient, and her mother. He says everyone on the jet was from Mexico.
Patient came to the United States for medical care, and the trip was a trip to repatriate her back, and much to our regret, it appears that there are no survivors from that crash.
On the company's website, a plane similar to the one that crashed appears in this promotional video posted by Jet Rescue. Growing questions after another aviation tragedy.
And it appears that the pilots had little to no time to react. It's just very unusual for an aircraft to come out of the sky that way.
Truly heartbreaking. Another, again, aviation tragedy. We, of course, know this investigation is just getting started. NTSB, FAA.
It landed in a busy section of the city near a mall. It's unknown whether there are any casualties on the ground. Here, though, is how one witness described the scene.
I was in shock. I'm still in shock. Like, this is insane. Why can this happen? And before that, to be honest, in my mind, I thought, like, what if the rocket would, because I'm from Ukraine, right? And there's war. There's always rockets coming in and stuff like that. And then I see, things flying. Like, no way, the war started again? You know, and you say, you never know.
Here's the conversation also that we have now obtained from the air traffic control tower. Listen.
Medevac med service, Northeast Tower. Medevac med service 056, Northeast Tower. You on frequency?
We have a lost aircraft. We're not exactly sure what happened, so we're trying to figure it out.
Let's go straight to Philadelphia, where Councilman Mike Driscoll, who represents that area, is with us now. Councilman, thank you very much for joining us. I know this is a very active scene. There was just a briefing with other city officials, but I want to ask you directly about that plane, 6 people on it, according to the company. Do you believe that there are any survivors on that aircraft?
Well, Abby, I can't say for sure, but it doesn't. It's a sad situation we have here in Northeast Philadelphia. We were only celebrating a couple of days ago, our football team's success, and now we have this tonight. And it looks like not only the people that won that plane and the person that needed medical help, they seem to be people that were doing the Lord's work. And now we have our first responders out there en masse. Our governor, our mayor, all doing all they can to not only the folks that were on that plane, but we are afraid there's more casualties on the ground. We don't know yet. It's going to take some time. We have to have some patience. We have to let our first responders do their job, but we're very nervous.
Yeah, I want to talk about that for a second. Can you tell us about the scene there, where this plane went down? Our understanding is that there might be cars involved, homes involved as well. Do you have a sense of what was impacted by either the direct crash or the subsequent fireball that we see in all of these videos?
We believe this happened.
So it appears the plane went down into a parking lot area where there were cars, stores. Just across the street, as you mentioned, there's a giant mall with many, many, many stores. And then right beyond the stores on both sides, we have residential neighborhoods. And I think what the video you just showed was a house very close that was getting a delivery, and all of a sudden the explosion hit. So what we're going with our first responders now is door to door to see if anybody in those homes were actually, injured or worse.
And as of right now, do you know if anyone has been transported with any injuries at all to hospitals or other facilities?
Abby, there's first responders vehicles moving in and out, whether they're taking them to the hospital or just responding to the homes or to the businesses or to the folks that were actually in the cars when that plane hit that sort of parking lot area. We suspect a lot will be going on as the evening progresses.
And in terms of the fire, our understanding is that the fire is being described as under control, but is there still fire burning? Are there still kind of active parts of this scene that are being dealt with from a fire perspective?
Absolutely. We have a wonderful fire department here.
The reason it went down.
By the way, the first...
A couple of things real quick, Jesse, just to kind of go over what Rich was asking there about people on the ground, Rich Zioli. We do now know that there are several reports that people on the ground were injured. In fact, saying there are several injuries on the ground. So that gives you an idea of how powerful this was when it hit the intersection. It was in the middle of the intersection, didn't necessarily hit the mall, the Roosevelt Mall, which has stores like Macy's and Ross Dress for Less and restaurants around there. It hit an intersection, and the reports are there were several injuries on the ground and row houses on fire. It's important also to note, Jesse, the weather, just so we have clarity on this, the weather at the time of the takeoff at 6:06, temperature was 49 degrees, light rain, some fog, and wind gusts of 30 miles per hour. There is nothing to indicate any trouble there. If you look now at the flight data, it shows that at 6:06, the plane took off, and it disappeared from radar 30 seconds later, which is an indication that sometime between 25 and 30 seconds, something catastrophic happened, because as you look at the video, there appeared to be some type of flames, whether it was an engine, whether it was inside the plane, unclear. But before it hit the ground, there were some kind of flames. Again, we have 2 doctors, 2 pilots, a patient and a family member. We keep hearing small plane, and it is a Learjet 55. So just so people know, it's 43 feet wide. It's 55 feet long. So it's not that small, difficult to fly. But this is also a plane owned by Jet Rescue, and people don't recognize that. To a little bit of context, the company is based in Mexico. It flew Baseball Hall of Famer David Ortiz to Boston after he was shot in the Dominican Republic back in 2019. And of course, this same company involved in transporting patients critically ill with COVID-19. One fascinating thing is that Fox 29 now reporting in Philadelphia that because it was a medical transport plane, this is interesting, that the Philadelphia police telling a reporter there outside of McDonald's at Cottman Avenue and Roosevelt Boulevard near where the plane crashed, there are pieces of the jet everywhere. But what's fascinating is a quarter of a mile away, Jesse, there is a medical oxygen tank that was found. And the speculation has been from pilots and other experts, maybe something happened. Maybe the configuration of this plane was, as you said at the top of your show, it was configured to be a flying ambulance, and there were oxygen tanks. And the possibility that one of those oxygen tanks may have leaked or exploded or something like that is now a very real possibility. And if you look at this, it was going to Springfield, Branson, Missouri, to be specific. That's the airport. And we don't know exactly how much fuel it had on, but they can carry up to 1,400 pounds. So this thing is a flying bomb, especially just taking off. That's why when you see the picture on the middle of your screen there and you see that explosion, this thing could be loaded down with fuel and very dangerous and very lethal to the buildings and the people around the area of the crash scene. And of course, Sean Duffy, as you said, Jesse, has now confirmed there were in fact 6 people on board, several injuries on the ground, and the investigation is not even beginning at this point. Yeah, you know, when they find the black box, I'm sure they'll learn a lot more. You mentioned this is like a jet ambulance. So if there's an emergency situation
with a high-value individual, a VIP. You mentioned Hall of Fame baseball player. This thing's wheels up and is going to the best surgeon in the country. Doesn't matter where they are, whether it's Boston, Missouri, Los Angeles. This thing is ready to go, and it's loaded up. You called it a flying bomb. Explain to me how, if you have all these oxygen tanks, and we don't know what other gases or anything like that they had on the flight, because it's a kind of medically equipped flight, how could that have sparked an incident with the engine?
Well, it's unclear.
Go ahead.
It's unclear that it is the engine, Jesse. I mean, it's unclear that this was an engine. So, I mean, there's a good possibility it was an engine. There's a good possibility it had one. The question is, what is the black box tape going to show? Because that's the flight data recorder. That would record the conversation inside the cockpit, because we have heard nothing, zero, about any contact with the tower between the time this thing went up and then it disappeared from radar, unless they gave it a handoff at some point in 15, 20 seconds. But after that, after the explosion, after this thing lost air capacity and started twisting toward the ground, there is no word that we have heard yet there was any communication with the tower at all. An indication that the pilots were doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is to aviate, to navigate, and then to communicate. And the first thing you want to do is to try to gain control of the aircraft before you start telling people or you know, sending in a mayday of some sort. So I think the basic capacity here for investigators when they get on scene to find out, was this an engine or was this something catastrophic that happened on board the actual plane that had nothing to do with the engines, but it either maybe blew a hole in there and they lost pressure and something else happened, and then they lost the ability to fly this plane. So it is really early and really too soon to be able to point at engines and point at anything else, because there are so many variables.
This started
especially
around 6 o'clock. FlightAware shows that the plane took off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport 6:06. About 30 seconds later, there's no record of its movement. So it was about 30 seconds in the air. But look at the flight path. This is on your screen. Look at the green line. That shows how far the plane made it. The plane made it about 1,600 feet in the air. We also have recordings from air traffic control from the moment the plane took off. Listen to this initial communication.
Medevac, med service 056, on departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff, wind 25010.
That's when the plane was preparing for departure. Next clip that you're going to hear.
Joining us now live from.
So this started around. So it was about 30 seconds in the air. But look at the flight path. This is on your screen. Look at the green line. That shows how far the plane made it. The plane made it about 1,600 feet in the air. We also have recordings from air traffic control from the moment the plane took off. Listen to this initial communication.
Medevac, med service 056, on departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff, wind 25010.
That's when the plane was preparing for departure. Next clip that you're going to hear is when the plane was cleared for takeoff.
Medevac, med service 056, affirmative. On departure, turn right heading 290, runway 24, clear for takeoff.
And shortly after that, air traffic control makes contact with the plane on departure, and then you'll hear the pilot respond.
Medevac, med service 056, contact Philly departure 123.8.
123.8, Mike Tango Sierra 056 Medevac. Thank you, good day.
Everything seems smooth. After takeoff, air traffic control tries to make contact with the pilot again, though. You will hear they get no response from the Medevac Med Service.
Medevac Med Service, Northeast Tower. Medevac Med Service 056, Northeast Tower. You on frequency?
Medevac Mike Tango Sierra 056, Northeast Tower. How do you hear this transmission?
And there are even a few more attempts from air traffic control to make contact with the plane. Next, you'll hear air traffic control refer to the plane as a lost aircraft.
Approach to runway 24, what's going on down there?
Position 755, we have a lost aircraft. We're not exactly sure what happened, so we're trying to figure it out. For now, the field is going to be closed, so no inbounds or outbounds probably.
So air traffic control grounded all flights, no flights in and out of the area. We did talk to Arthur Walk. He's an aviation expert that we turn to in times like this. He tells us that it seems to be, from all the information that we have so far, and really that's preliminary, he says that it seems to be mechanical.
The airplane was at a relatively light weight, only 6 people aboard. That's not a lot. And even if you add the equipment, that's not a lot either. So nothing about the numbers of people or the equipment on board or the way it was configured would give you any indication why the airplane descended in the manner it did.
But again,
Fun
we'll
at CB
get
Cotton
more
because she's
answers.
live in Philadelphia at the scene of the crash. She has got information about a patient who was treated tonight. And CB, where are you exactly, and what are you seeing and hearing?
Hi, Trace. Well, we're here at a diner about a quarter mile away from the crash site, and I can tell you there are sirens for as far as the eye can see. There are so many people moving about in this area because Northeast Philadelphia has just been left stunned in the worst way tonight after this medical transport plane crashed moments after taking off. I can now also confirm some more tragic news. We know that Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, the company that owns that plane that crashed, they did tell us 6 people were on board, 4 crew members, pilot, co-pilot, physician, paramedic, and a young girl and her mother. I've just now confirmed with Shriners Children's in Philadelphia that that young girl had been treated at their hospital. I just got a statement moments ago from a media spokesperson. I want to read it and share it with our viewers. It says in part, quote, Shriners Children's is heartbroken to confirm that one of our pediatric patients and the child's mother were aboard the Jet Rescue Air Ambulance that crashed in Philadelphia this evening. The patient had received care from Shriners Children's Philadelphia and was being transported back to her home country in Mexico on a contracted air ambulance when the crash happened. Because of patient privacy concerns, we cannot say more about the patient and her family at this time. And the statement goes on to say that the entire medical crew at the hospital is deeply impacted. The hospital offering its hearts and prayers to those who are also impacted by this situation and thanking the first responders. So just some more tragic details that we've confirmed. And I've also spoken with a spokesperson for that medical transport plane, and he described both the pilot and co-pilot as very seasoned, adding that the company Jet Rescue Air Ambulance flies 700 missions a year. So that's some of the details that we've heard tonight from the company itself. We also know that that flight's final destination was Tijuana International Airport, but the flight was going to make a stop for fuel in Springfield, Missouri. And we know that, again, moments after taking off, that flight crashed. And some of the images and videos that we've been sharing with our viewers are absolutely horrific. Everything happened after 6 p.m. today. I've been talking with some senior fire officials, one of them telling me that at least one person was here on scene, badly burned, had survived the crash. And we don't know whether this person was on the plane or was in a nearby car when the crash occurred. But I'm told by a senior fire official that one person who was badly burned, still alive when first responders arrived, perished shortly after first responders got here and began treatment. So the more details we learn tonight, they're just heartbreaking, and our hearts go out to everybody impacted by this tragedy. We know that members of the NTSB have just gotten here, on the ground. 45 state troopers.
Breaking news here, and on a week of horrific aviation news already, we have learned tonight of a small plane crash right into a busy neighborhood in Philadelphia. The images coming in now. The small plane coming down late today, multiple buildings and cars on fire. There are reports at this hour of multiple casualties, debris in the street. ABC's Phil Lipoff tonight with the images coming in now.
Tonight, chilling video capturing the moment a jet plunged directly into the heart of Northeast Philadelphia. At the height of rush hour, a huge fireball erupting against the night sky, leaving residents terrified.
Stay in your home. Again, it's still an active scene and it's under investigation.
The crash lighting multiple buildings and cars on fire. Wreckage and debris scattered across the busy intersection of homes and shopping centers. There are reports of multiple casualties.
I felt the car shaking, so that's what actually made me look around. And when I looked in back of us, it was just really flaming and just everything was just engulfed in flames and just everywhere, and people panicking and running and screaming. And I got out and I ran towards everything, just trying to make sure everybody was okay. You could tell it was a plane. You could smell it. You could see fragments of it. And it was just a gruesome, crazy scene.
The FAA says the Lear jet with 6 people on board going down moments after takeoff from Northeast Philadelphia Airport.
The plane just crashed into the plaza where Macy's at.
The flight was headed to Springfield, Missouri.
It has to do with something that probably we should never see, and that is either fuel failure, engine failure, or some form of a catastrophe that caused the pilot to try to put it down anywhere he could.
Governor Josh Shapiro tonight says he is sending all possible resources to the scene. Phil Lipoff.
This is WFTV Tonight.
Yeah, man, she's good. She's still hanging.
Just incredible doorbell cam video shows the horrific crash tonight in Philadelphia. A medical transport jet nosedives into the ground. The explosion sending fire, smoke, debris, and people running for their lives. Good evening, I'm Greg Warma. Tonight, another plane crash this week. This one in a very busy and heavily populated section of Northeast Philadelphia. The FAA is reporting that 6 people were on board the plane, 2 pilots, a pediatric patient, a little girl, 2 doctors, and that girl's mother. On the ground, the fire engulfed a neighborhood, an outdoor mall, and cars on the streets. Channel 9's Daryl Matthews is live in studio with me now, and you've monitored the social media feeds, and the scene looked like a bomb went off, Daryl.
Yeah, Greg, it's just devastating. We have been seeing some horrific video just like this one here. An unbelievable scene on social media as the country comes to grips with the reality that 2 mass casualty plane crashes have taken place just days apart from one another. Some of those images are just too graphic to show you on air, but here's just some of the devastation folks on the ground are currently dealing with. Now take a look at this dash cam video. This you see right here is that plane plummeting from the sky and instantly causing a massive explosion. While people are just sitting in traffic, black smoke filling the air, cars instantly in a standstill. Now here's another video that was taken from someone sitting in a McDonald's drive-thru. The parking lot erupting in flames as that plane crashed feet away from parked cars. It looks like a scene out of a disaster movie as fires engulfed the parking lot, leading up to the person who was shooting that video as they were simply waiting to get something to eat. Now this video, this was shot by a friend of mine showing the flames blocking the roadway, coming out of the road, that gray smoke blocking the view to the other end of the road. The fire even making its way to the homes and the nearby buildings. Now, he was working feet away from that area when the fireball shook the streets.
The fireball was so big that it was traveling in the sky. Like, describing it doesn't no justice. Like, the fire was traveling in a direction that I was walking towards. So then I started running the opposite way until it went away.
Now, President Trump posted to Truth Social saying, quote, "So sad to see the plane go down in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. More innocent souls lost. Our people are totally engaged. First responders are already being given credit for doing a great job." Now, obviously, this is ongoing and very active situation in Philadelphia. We're learning more details minute by minute, and we'll be sure to continue bring you the latest. Greg?
And Daryl, you are from Philadelphia. We're glad your friend, who is a postal worker, is okay. And you know this area very well. And we reported it came down about 30 seconds into flight. It's a busy, congested area, and it was a Friday night.
Yeah, Greg, this is about 5 minutes from a busy plaza. So there's restaurants, as you've seen from that video there, the McDonald's. And this is a main artery road in Northeast that's constantly having bumper-to-bumper traffic. I mean, sometimes you can sit in there for as much as an hour on some days. And this is happening around peak traffic. So just think about how many people were possibly impacted by this explosion. row homes and businesses make up a huge portion of this area. And I've driven this road for about 3 years for work, so I know the ins and outs and how busy it could be. And I've been checking the feeds on social media, and I'm going to bring some more of that information back. And we're going to keep staying up on this and to see how many casualties have been going on for now, Greg.
Yeah, and Daryl, when you talk about congested area, it was also a pretty warm night. I mean, it was drizzling, and the video, and you said some of the video is just too difficult to show on television. I mean, some show people on fire themselves. This is an area that's a close-knit community, and people know one another. This is just going to be a heartbreaking scene when we get first light in the morning.
Yeah, Greg, it's already hard to look at, and we're just getting the preliminary visuals of everything right now. So we're still waiting for a lot of information to unfold. I've checked on a lot of family and friends, and they're telling me that they are okay, but still shaken up. The ground shook, windows were shaking almost to the point of shattering.
It was just a wild scene. Thank you, Daryl, and we're glad your friends and family, I know you checked on all of them, are doing okay. You're from that area, and you know it well. Thank you, sir. We can also tell you that there are people being treated right now at Temple University Hospital, that is in Philadelphia. 6 people transported there. We have no other word in terms of if someone or any more than just the people on the board the plane were killed. The cause still under investigation, and just a little while ago, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro had a news conference, and he said that officials expect fatalities in this, quote, awful aviation disaster. He said, quote, we know that there will be loss. And here's the city's mayor warning residents about this huge debris field.
So right now we're just asking for prayers for any and everyone who may have been affected. We do want to note that several dwellings and vehicles were impacted. So what are we asking you to do for us right now, Philadelphia? We're urging you to please stay away from the scene. If you see debris, call 911. Don't touch anything. This is still an active scene under investigation.
All 6 people aboard were from Mexico. This is new information. The child had been treated at Shriner Children's Hospital in Philadelphia for a life-threatening condition and was being transported home to Mexico. This is according to Jet Rescue Air Ambulance's spokesperson. The flight's final destination was Tijuana after a stop in Branson, Missouri tonight. The patient and her mother were on board along with 4 crew members. A spokesperson again saying this was a seasoned crew and that everyone involved in these flights goes through rigorous training.
They're equipped to put.
Allie, this is a nightmare that seems to be metastasizing in Philadelphia. You can see these balls of flames that we were just talking to Tom Costello about. This is near the Roosevelt Mall. So now we're talking about the potential for injuries on the ground, obviously injuries from that plane or fatalities in both circumstances. This seems like a bad time to have utter chaos in the federal government and at the FAA.
Yeah, this is a really complicated matter because Northeast Philadelphia Airport falls under the Philadelphia Aerodrome. So the larger air traffic control area that controls that area is Philadelphia and the Philadelphia Tower. It's responsible for a lot of incoming and outgoing flights anywhere into the region. It's a pretty busy airport, actually. This flight was coming in from Morristown, New Jersey, as Tom was saying. These Learjets are equipped because of the size of them and the range that they can fly. They're equipped to put medical patients on. They can put stretchers on them. Very unusual situation because to fly a Learjet, your qualifications have to be pretty high. So we're not quite sure, and we never like to speculate this early into an accident as to what could have happened. But it does seem to have overshot the runway. And when you do that, you end up in, first of all, a pretty residential area in Northeast Philadelphia. So it's densely populated. You know, one of the good fortunes we always seen when a plane doesn't land exactly where it's supposed to be is that often it's in an unpopulated area. That's not the case here. This is a populated area. Roosevelt Mall is obviously a busy place. I'm looking at aerial shots right now, and there are closures all around the area because this is a big concern. It's also a very short journey on an aircraft that is very powerful, and because it's a jet, carries a great deal of fuel. Jet fuel is very flammable, so this has the potential to be much more serious than that looks at the moment. We do know what we know right now is it does seem to have been on a medical mission coming from Morristown, New Jersey. Very short flight, not long at all, but that's often the case with these medevac flights or these things in which they're moving patients. But yeah, this has landed outside of a fairly busy airport. Northeast Philadelphia is the second busiest airport in the Philadelphia metro area, but they all fall. I've flown out of the Philadelphia regional airports a lot. They all fall under Philadelphia. So any air traffic control information you need, if you're flying out of any of these small airports, it gets governed by the ATC and the controllers that deal with Philadelphia Airport, because it's all in very similar related airspace, and it is incredibly busy airspace. Obviously, for those of us who live in New York, you have 3 major airports and a bunch of subsidiary airports, so there's probably no busier airport, but we've been talking about DCA with Reagan. There are 3 major airports in that area and a lot of subsidiary airports. This area around Philadelphia has a lot of them. So this is a busy airport area. It's a busy area for air flights. And it is sadly an area where if a plane does overshoot or something happens and it doesn't land on the pad of the airport, there's a great deal of danger of getting into an occupied area, where people live. One of the instructions pilots always have when they're having a problem landing or taking off, when you're that close to the ground, it's the most dangerous aspect of flight, both taking off and landing. And the instruction a pilot always has is you fly that plane until it's not flyable anymore, until it's onto the ground. But if you are taking off or landing in an area where you're running out of runway and there's nothing there, you aim that plane to the place where you are going to cause the least amount of damage. They say if there's houses, aim between houses. If there's trees, aim between trees. Try and get that plane to where it has to go so that when that fire comes up, it's the most important thing. And when a plane's going down, in your training, and if you're a Learjet pilot, you've got a lot of training. One of the things you learn is you turn everything off, including the fuel, because the biggest danger, you can land a plane sometimes successfully in a crash. The biggest danger is a fire. Once the plane has caught fire, you not only are in severe danger inside that plane and all the passengers are in severe danger, but so is everybody around you. And unfortunately, this very preliminary reporting is that this is what has happened. Obviously, we're seeing images of it, so we know that this is what has happened. The thing that every pilot fears, and that is a fire on landing, on crashing, or any time during flight. That's the most serious and most difficult thing to get out of. So we don't know whether that crash was survivable when it landed, but that kind of fire makes it look very, very concerning.
Yeah, indeed. I'm just going to give some updated information I want to give to the viewers. There were 2 people on board that aircraft. It was en route to Springfield Branson National Airport in Missouri. That is according to the FAA. And just to continue on what you're saying, Allie, because what we're looking at here is not just the flames, but also the smoke. And I can only imagine how toxic that smoke is from jet fuel, especially since, as you said, this plane had just taken off. That means it was full of fuel. And so I'm wondering, those houses look really, really close, and the danger to people there, not just from potential fire, but also from smoke.
Yeah, and the spread of fire, as we watched in Los Angeles, right? When you're in an urban area and homes are very, very close together, there's all these sort of fantasies about how you make sure that home fires don't spread to other places by having brush that's not too clear to your, close to your house and 100 feet and 200 feet. That's not how it works in a place like Northeast Philadelphia. These are heavily populated areas. Homes are very, very close together. So it's not a situation where if 1 or 2 houses are on fire, you're safe. This is going to be a full fire response in the area, because they're going to have to make sure that everything on every block in that area isn't there, and that embers from the fire don't end up on someone else's house and creating a much, much bigger problem. As I say, when you're thinking about a plane crash, it's a terrible, terrible thing, but you hope, and this is what all pilots do, they all try and say, if this plane is going down, how do I get it to go down with the minimal impact, both obviously to the people on board, but to the people on the ground, and that always has to do with fire. So there's only so much you can do. You can turn the fuel off in a plane, but once it crashes, very, very easy to ignite that fuel, and that plane would have been a plane with probably fully fueled. Small planes don't tend to fly around without full fuel if they can avoid doing so, because it's a safety mechanism. On large planes that are going across the country, they tend not to have more fuel than you need. But on a small plane, you have to have at least half an hour more fuel than you would need to complete the trip that you filed for. So it's possible that that plane was going to refuel somewhere along the line, but that's a lot of fuel that's already on the plane, and that's burning. And once that fuel gets onto things around it, there's very little firefighters can do except try and provide for the area around it to hope that that fire doesn't spread.
Allie, please stay with me. I want to bring back in Randy Babbitt, former administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration. He joins me on the phone. Mr. Babbitt, thank you for coming back. We appreciate you spending some more time with us. There are still bodies being recovered in the Potomac from the crash that took place between that airplane and chopper, that fatal crash. And now there is a second plane down within just a couple of days. What will the FAA be doing in the immediate aftermath? What is the job? Walk us through what the FAA would be doing regarding this plane that has gone down in Philly.
Well, first, yes, I'm spending my afternoon and evening with MSNBC, but and I know precious little, to be very candid. This accident was, just obviously very recent. But the FAA, the first thing they would do is try to get all the records, talk to the tower personnel. What was the weather conditions? They're certainly going to coordinate with the NTSB, who will, actually be charged with investigating the accident. But the FAA has accident investigators as well, and they'll try to ascertain as much data as they could. They'll certainly record the tracks. My understanding is this aircraft shot an approach, and it was a medevac airplane, if I understand correctly, and it overshot the runway.
It was.
There's a little bit of history. It's sort of a blessing and a curse. The medevacs, it's always an emergency condition. You have someone, you're either going to go get someone from an accident or you're taking someone from an accident. And they're obviously, because we're flying them in and out, they're not healthy. They've been injured. And so a lot of times these groups, the medevac pilots, sort of push the edge of the envelope to make sure they can get somebody to a hospital in sometimes marginal conditions, candidly. And I don't know what the weather up. I live close enough to know that it's raining here, so it was probably a wet runway. And they were trying to get on the ground to get some people some emergency help, and something went wrong.
For an explosion. It landed in a busy section of the city near a mall. It's unknown whether there are any casualties on the ground. Here, though, is how one witness described the scene.
Tonight,
I was in shock. I'm still in shock. Like, this is insane. Why can this happen? And before that, to be honest, in my mind, I thought, like, what if the rocket would, because I'm from Ukraine, right? And there's war. There's always rockets coming in and stuff like that. And then I see, things flying. Like, no way, the war started again? And you say, you never know.
Here's the conversation also that we have now obtained from the air traffic control tower. Listen.
Medevac Med Service, Northeast Tower. Medevac Med Service 056, Northeast Tower. You on frequency?
We have a lost aircraft. We're not exactly sure what happened, so we're trying to figure it out.
Let's go straight to Philadelphia, where Councilman Mike Driscoll, who represents that area, is with us now. Councilman, thank you very much for joining us. I know this is a very active scene. There was just a briefing with other city officials. But I want to ask you directly about that plane, 6 people on it, according to the company. Do you believe that there are any survivors on that aircraft?
Well, Abby, I can't say for sure, but it doesn't look good. It's a sad situation we have here in Northeast Philadelphia. We were only celebrating a couple of days ago, our football team success, and now we have this tonight. And it looks like not only the people that were on that plane and the person that needed medical help, they seem to be people that were doing the Lord's work. And now we have our first responders out there en masse. Our governor, our mayor, all doing all they can to not only the folks that were on that plane, but we are afraid there's more casualties on the ground. We don't know yet. It's going to take some time. We have to have some patience. We have to let our first responders do their job, but we're very nervous.
Yeah, I want to talk about that for a second. Can you tell us about the scene there, where this plane went down? Our understanding is that there might be cars involved, homes involved as well. Do you have a sense of what was impacted by either the direct crash or the subsequent fireball that we see in all of these videos?
We believe this happened at...
So it appears the plane went down into a parking lot area where there were cars, stores. Just across the street, as you mentioned, there's a giant mall with many, many, many stores. And then right beyond the stores on both sides, we have residential neighborhoods. And I think what the video you just showed was a house very close that was getting a delivery, and all of a sudden the explosion hit. So what we're going with our first responders now is door to door to see if anybody in those homes were actually, injured or worse.
And as of right now, do you know if anyone has been transported with any injuries at all to hospitals or other facilities?
Abby, there's first responders vehicles moving in and out, whether they're taking them to the hospital or just responding to the homes or to the businesses or to the folks that were actually in the cars when that plane hit that sort of parking lot area. We suspect a lot will be going on as the evening progresses.
And in terms of the fire, our understanding is that the fire is being described as under control, but is there still fire burning? Are there still kind of active parts of this scene that are being dealt with from a fire perspective?
Absolutely. We have a wonderful fire department here. By the way, the first fire department in the United States of America. We have a highly trained first responder unit. And so, yeah, they're putting the fires out. But as you can imagine, there's those tinders that are always active that the first responders and the police have to make sure that they don't become a problem when the wind hits them. And they're also near vehicles that still have fuel in them. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we're nervous is the word, but confident that our wonderful governor, our wonderful mayor, and our wonderful first responders will get this under control and keep the casualties to a minimum.
All right, Councilman Mike Driscoll, we're going to keep close with you as we try to continue to get updates throughout the night. Thank you very much, and I'm thinking about and praying for your community tonight.
Well, thank you, Abby. Thanks for having us on.
We have this new video just into CNN. You can hear the explosion happening in this video. Listen.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! What the hell? What the hell? What the hell? Oh my God! Oh my God! La ilaha illallah! There's a plane, bro! That's a plane!
Shock and panic in that man's voice. Joining us now to discuss this, CNN aviation analyst Miles O'Brien, as well as aviation lawyer Justin Green. Both of them are pilots. Justin, I want to start with you for a second here. Look, this is a very seemingly unusual situation. The plane seems to just fall right out of the sky. What do you think happened here?
I mean, it's a little early to say, what caused it, but what you described earlier was like, it looked like a missile, and I think that's exactly what it was. It was an aircraft that was completely out of control, and it came down like a missile, and unlike the crash in D.C., this happened in a populated area. The D.C. accident happened in the Potomac, and I think that's going to be, part of what we're going to be looking at is, are there survivors on the ground? Just a horrible, horrible night for America.
Absolutely, and a horrible night capping a horrible week for this country. Miles, I want to talk about what we've learned tonight, which is that this flight was actually only in the air for about 40 seconds. 40 seconds. And we were just playing the air traffic control audio just moments ago, and they didn't get a response from that cockpit. What do you think that indicates?
This plane was in trouble from the start, Abby. We don't know, of course, yet what was going on. Just a little context here. Medevac flying, particularly with helicopters, in this case, of course, fixed wing, but medevac flying is among the most dangerous sectors of aviation there is because of the nature of the mission. The crews are often under pressure to save a life, frankly. They are oftentimes flying at night in bad weather. They often land in unfamiliar short landing strips. There's a lot of reasons that is the case. So medevac flying is a tough one. This aircraft, the Learjet 55, this one was built in 1981. It's commonly used for this purpose. It's about the right size, has good range and good speed. Now, what happened immediately after takeoff, we of course don't know, and it'll be a long time before we figure this one out, but this is an aircraft that was clearly not responding to the control inputs of the crew. What could cause that? Was there some hydraulic failure of some kind which made it impossible for them to move the aero surfaces? Probably unlikely. It was not great weather on departure. Was there an instrument failure which caused them to lose their orientation? When you're flying through the clouds, you're relying on your instruments to maintain your situational awareness, and it can be very confusing if you lose that. Was there something in that pre-flight checklist that was overlooked that turned out to be quite crucial? We do know this, though. This type of aircraft operating under these circumstances will have a cockpit voice recorder and a flight data recorder. Now, it's a tremendous impact and explosion. We can only hope that they are designed to survive this kind of thing, but let's hope they do survive so we can get some answers as to what happened here.
Yeah, I mean, that will be critical at this stage. Justin, the plane seemed to begin to descend around 1,600 feet.
Right.
What is happening at that altitude?
They're basically on departure. So they're honestly, at that altitude, they should be climbing out and having a relatively normal flight. As Miles just said, though, these flights are almost like angel flights. The people doing them are looking out for the interest of the passenger who's someone who needs medical attention. I think one of the questions in any of these crashes is what kind of medical attention does this person need, and what kind of emergency situation are they facing? Is this just a normal flight, or are they really trying to get this person somewhere, so they can get emergency medical treatment? However, as Miles said, this airplane lost control. So whether it's a hydraulics issue, whether it's a trim issue, meaning they lost the ability to control the airplane, I think that's likely what happened here.
We are staying on late tonight due to our breaking news coverage. It continues right now. We're still tracking a deadly plane crash, a medical transport jet carrying 6 people crashing near a busy mall in the Northeast.
And we have our crews throughout the area tonight. This crash happening near Cottman and Bustleton Avenues, just miles away from the Northeast Philadelphia airport.
Yuki Washington along with Janelle Burrell. Here's what we know tonight. Authorities tell us 6 people were on board, including a young child, a little girl. That was a medical flight carrying 2 pilots, 2 doctors, and a patient, and the mother of that patient. Right now, there's no confirmation that anyone survived.
What we know is that the plane went down on Cottman Avenue. This is near the Roosevelt Mall. The debris field, it is extensive. At this point, we know it spans several blocks, and there are reports that multiple people on the ground were hurt.
Now we want to show you this. Take a look at the light green line in the middle of your screen. That's the small plane taking off from Northeast Airport, bound for Springfield, Missouri, the airport there. It was in the air for only minutes before it went down.
And we're also getting our first look at the plane. You can see a piece of the plane here, the medical symbol on this piece of debris. This is at the Roosevelt Mall parking lot. Carrie Corrado was one of the first reporters to get to the scene. She joins us now with some of the latest details there. Carrie.
Well, it has been a chaotic scene all night long. I've been speaking with many witnesses, and many of them were at a loss of words as they tried to describe what they saw and what happened right in front of their eyes. Behind me is a look at emergency responders. They have been here for hours, and they will continue to be here all night long processing this scene. Everywhere you look, you can see flashing lights. If you're just joining us, police say this all happened in the area of the Roosevelt Mall at Roosevelt Boulevard and Cottman Avenue. We are told a medical plane was going from Philadelphia to Springfield, Missouri. It left the Northeast Philadelphia airport not long after it crashed into the neighborhood. We are told 6 people were on the plane at the time of that crash. According to a statement from Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, the 6 people were 4 crew members, a pediatric patient, and the patient's escort. We are told the pediatric patient had just finished treatment in Philadelphia and was being taken back to Mexico. And witnesses described the moment of impact like a fireball. They say their homes shook. Many of them abandoned their cars and ran. Several homes and vehicles were impacted, and debris and fire was everywhere. Also keep in mind, this is a very populated area. People live here, they work here, they shop here. So many people were here at the time and witnessed this entire thing, capturing it on video. The FAA, the NTSB, the FBI, other agencies are also here, and here is what a witness says he saw.
I was just talking to my mom in the pull-through right next to Dunkin' Donuts, and all of a sudden we just heard this whirring and then a crash, and it was an explosion right next to Dunkin' Donuts, and everyone just started screaming. My mom told me to back up, back up, back up.
This is a massive scene. Everywhere you look, you can see police tape up and down the streets. The mayor says there is shelter at the Samuel Fells High School. The Red Cross was also out here trying to see if anybody needed help. I also want to highlight that many of the stories I have been hearing are neighbors helping neighbors. This community came together in tragedies. But again, as of right now, investigators are here on scene. This investigation is far from over. Back to you.
Just getting underway. Carrie Corrado has been live out there for us throughout the night. Carrie, thank you so much for your reporting.
CBS Philadelphia Siafa Lewis has also been on the scene since this tragic accident happened. Siafa?
Yuki and Janelle, you know, as I was listening to Carrie, I was thinking about something someone on Instagram posted tonight, remarking on just how absurd the news cycle has been here in the first month, of 2025. Of course, punctuated by this horrific tragedy tonight here in the Northeast. We spoke to several people this evening who not only saw what transpired when that plane hit, I assume, the row homes, but also some of the collateral damage and some of the things they saw on the ground in the minutes afterwards. Here is somebody else that we spoke to tonight.
First, I heard a loud boom, and I seen like the little spark out of my window. So I hurry up. I ran right over here to see what's going on. I just seen flames, smoke, and then I was chilling over there. And then I was with my friend and all that. We had seen like a little kid. He ran out the fire. I want to send my condolences out to anybody who lost their peoples and all that. For sure, it's just tragic. Definitely hurt. And it was crazy. Like me and my mom and my niece, we was just on the road 5 minutes before it happened, coming down off 95. Just on the road, and then 5 minutes later, then that's when that happened. So it was like, dang, that could have been us.
How do you feel about everything that you witnessed tonight?
Tragic. It hurt. Even though it wasn't none of my people that got hurt and all that, it still hurt. It's crazy.
That young man also told me some of the other things that he saw, which we did not share with you. Just absolutely horrific. Such a sad night here in the Northeast. It's going to take quite some time for the people who witnessed everything they witnessed tonight to deal with that, not to mention all those involved down the street about half a mile from where I'm standing right now. Yuki and Janelle will send it back to you.
Indeed. Siafa, thank you and your crew for your hustle tonight.
Absolutely. And we want to show you more video just into our newsroom showing, look at this. This is the immediate aftermath of the crash. It captures the chaos that unfolded here along Cottman Avenue. You see all of that debris. The fire, people stunned as those flames erupt on the street and right on the front lawns of some of the homes there. You can only imagine, Yuki,
Yeah.
what was going through these people's minds. First of all, if they did not actually see the plane going down, wondering what this is.
And then all of a sudden this happens. This is unbelievable,
people
unimaginable.
surveying all of this.
Many folks here documenting what happened, this tragic event tonight that happened at 6 o'clock, just after 6 o'clock tonight. This is unreal. By the way, Mr. Gustavo Chavez, who lives in the area, shared this video before any first responders got there, just moments after the jet went down along Cotman Ave. Some neighbors there describing this. We've mentioned it a number of times tonight, and they all have the same thought process, describing this as hell on earth.
Wow.
The plane crashed and exploded right near the Roosevelt Mall in Cotman Ave, and just to shock the entire community.
Yeah, we've seen an overwhelming response from federal, state, and local authorities on the scene. Our Josh Sanders, also in Northeast Philadelphia near the crash site. Josh, what can you tell us from where you are?
Hey, good evening. Good to be with you. We're on the other side of Roosevelt Boulevard from where we just spoke with SIAFA. As you mentioned, you have local, state, and federal officials on scene, all hands on deck. I want to take a look. You can see so many people here outside of that Macy's. Across from the Macy's is where that plane came down, crashed, those 6 beautiful souls on board, and an untold number of people that have been impacted here. We did hear from Mayor Sherrell Parker earlier today, along with Josh Shapiro, I should say, earlier tonight, providing just information of what they know. Obviously, there's so much out there right now, but we just want to report what we know. We do know from Governor Josh Shapiro that he spoke with Transportation Secretary Duffy. We know that 45 state troopers are on scene, 25 members of PennDOT are on scene. The Department of Environmental Protection is here just as they continue to investigate. Mayor Sherrell Parker did say if you're not involved here to please not be in this area and let investigators do their work. But if you are impacted, here's what she had to say of where you can go to find resources.
So we are asking everyone for their thoughts and prayers for all who may have been impacted and affected by this tragedy.
As the mayor always says, one Philly, we are unified in our approach to deal with this emergency. And again, I'll just end by sharing my prayers, the prayers of my wife, Lori, our First Lady, and on behalf of 13 million Pennsylvanians, we are all here for Northeast Philly tonight.
Mayor Sherrell Parker did go on to say if you have been impacted by what happened here, you can go to Samuel Fells High School. There are resources there. We do know that the Red Cross is here as well, guys. Obviously, they are just at the beginning of investigating what led to this plane crash. So many people impacted, but the silver lining, and we've heard it over and over and over again from people that we've spoken to, is neighbors helping neighbors. Philadelphians showing up for each other, and our thoughts and prayers are with everybody impacted. Guys, back to you.
Tough night indeed, Josh. We appreciate you and your crew as well. Thank you.
So many people stepping up to help. President Trump has been briefed on the situation. He posted on his social media platform, Truth Social, saying, quote, "So sad to see the plane go down in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. More innocent souls lost. Our people are totally engaged. First responders are already being given credit for doing a great job. More to follow. God bless you all." That coming from the president tonight.
A tragic night, indeed, on the ground and in the air. That plane was carrying 6 souls, including a young patient, when it fell to the earth.
Health reporter Stephanie Stahl joining us now. And Stephanie, tell us what you know about medical transport flights and what was occurring as that patient was leaving.
So these medical transport planes are like a mini ICU, a miniature intensive care unit. They have life support. So we don't know the particulars of what this patient, the situation of this little girl who is being transported from Philadelphia back to Mexico. We don't know her condition, but clearly she was in some sort of a fragile condition that she needed these life-sustaining mechanisms on board this plane. We talked earlier to a spokesperson from Shriners about this situation.
Was a patient who had come to us from Mexico. We do quite a bit of international outreach. She was being treated at our Philadelphia hospital, and her course of treatment had concluded, and so she was set to go home. And unfortunately, that was when this event occurred, was on her trip home. It's extremely hard and extremely difficult. They were all, those that were involved directly in her care were very aware that she was going to be traveling home, and there had actually been a send-off for her today. And so it hits us very deeply. Our patients, our family, and we become very close to those that we treat as well as their families. And so the care that we provide is not just in the clinical sphere. It really is the total person, the total patient, families. And so it's personal. It hits deep and hard, and we are devastated, as so many others tonight, as they are learning about this and watching the story unfold. I couldn't speak to the actual duration, but yes, I mean, she had been with us in Philadelphia, and so there were some definitely, some close bonds that had been formed, and people, we are close to all of our patients. All of our patients are part of the Shriners family, and so, with that, it's always just a deeply felt situation whenever one of them is lost. I mean, as you're aware, tonight has been a rapidly unfolding situation, and different pieces of information have been coming out piece by piece as everyone's been trying to put a puzzle together. And so it's been this evening through the course of the events that we were made aware of the confirmation that it was in fact our patient.
And I must tell you, over the years, we have done many, many stories with Shriners Hospital here in Philadelphia, and it is indeed a very special place. Some might call it a charity hospital. So what that means is they take patients regardless of their ability to pay. It's about helping the patients and their families. They take them from all over the world. It is mostly known for doing orthopedic interventions, but it can do all kinds of things. And it is world-renowned for the treatment that they provide here in Philadelphia. And it is a family there. And I am sure that the bonds with this little girl and her mother, who came here from Mexico, were very tight and very real. Over the years, as I've said, we've seen so many patients, and as they are put back together and their lives patched back together and they're sent off, we see the love and the thanks that they give to the people who take care of them. So it's a really special bond, and I can imagine tonight this is just a tragic situation for the people at Shriners who took care of this little girl, formed special bonds, took care of her, and sent her on her way. So our hearts are going out to them, our prayers are going out to them. And we should also say, it's not just Shriners Hospital. We had people also injured on the ground. Those folks were taken, many were to Jean's Hospital in Philadelphia. We're getting some reports, most are in fair condition. We don't know the situation for everybody there. This was a catastrophe.
Yes, it was.
Not only on this plane, but in a neighborhood in Philadelphia. So you can imagine hospitals, ambulance crews, everybody on that scene taking care. And as we know, Philadelphia, we're brotherly love, sisterly love here. So we take care of each other on a medical platform, but also in our community. So this is coming together on many, many levels tonight.
Many of our interviews tonight, people talking about people helping people, running to the scene, doing the best they can to help people during this tragic event.
But your heart just breaks, especially hearing that little girl. She had just wrapped up her treatment at Shriners. They had a send-off party, as the spokesperson was sharing with us, on that flight with her mother, ultimately heading back home only for this to happen.
Exactly.
Wow. Stephanie, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for that, Stephanie. And the images tonight are starting to capture some of the devastation that happened there on the ground. Alicia Roberts continuing our coverage, joining us live from our newsroom right now. Alicia.
Janelle, Yuki, good evening once again. We know that medical plane that crashed was carrying 6 people. Again, we want to show you some of the photos that have been coming into our newsroom tonight. This image shows part of the plane broken and scattered that fell in the parking lot of the Roosevelt Mall. It's hard to even believe it, and it is such a daunting reality when you realize those on board were seeking to give and receive life-saving care as this tragedy happened. You can see that debris field scattered for blocks and blocks, just the chaos of it all. Also, that fiery scene of the row homes now that are devastated as well by this tragedy on the ground. The firefighters responding at a moment's notice, trying to do what they could as neighbors who saw the smoke nearby could only sit back and watch. And, personally, growing up in the area, my grandmother's home was just blocks away at Longshore and the Boulevard. My phone, like so many who live and work in that area, filled tonight with notes of family and friends just checking on one another, Are you okay? The devastation of this is so wide. Like Stephanie was just saying, this is a neighborhood now that is impacted. Yuki and Janelle, if you know that area, it's bus stops, it's pedestrians, there's convenience stores, there are gas stations. The enormity of this disaster taking greater focus with still so many questions yet to be answered tonight.
So many indeed. Hopefully we will be
Absolutely.
getting the answers to those questions. Alicia, thank you so much. Chief Investigative Reporter Joe Holden has been working his sources all night. He, too, has been with us for, the last 6 hours now, getting information on this story.
And, Joe, you have been in touch with your law enforcement sources. Joe, joining us live now by phone. What can you tell us at this point, Joe?
Janelle and Yuki, good evening. So my sources tell me that right now they are working to treat this as a massive crime scene, to go block to block to block from one stretch of this area across the boulevard to the other, where we understand there is a debris field that is right now incalculable. They are finding pieces of debris from one end to the other, and they've been tasked, the police officers and other first responders, with trying to keep members of the public out. But while they now work with federal partners, the investigation is now growing speed and going in the direction to figure out what happened here. And as we look at these videos and we absorb what we've seen now for the last several hours, I'm taken back to my first report with Yuki in trying to describe some horrific details that I had to sort of blunt to be appropriate for our viewing audience, not having a full-scale understanding of what it was that we were seeing and understanding and trying to learn. And that first police officer I spoke with described this to be nothing short of a disaster. And that tonight, near Castor Gardens in the Mayfair section of Northeast Philadelphia, there sits an aviation disaster. And still unknown confirmed number of fatalities and injured, but we do know the inevitable at this point. And sadly, we will again mark this date in our history as a terrible moment in the city of Philadelphia. And our colleagues have done such a tremendous job, though, on the ground and on the scene of talking about regular people from Philadelphia doing what we do every day, and doing what they do, more importantly, every day, is to help those confronted by tough and really unbelievable situations. And right now, knowing what law enforcement has, again, experienced, and what our firefighters have experienced and our paramedics have dealt with, this situation will last indelibly for a while, but we know most will return to the job tomorrow, ready to do another shift. And yet, really, the images are hard to get out of your mind. And when you think about the work that has been done tonight already, and yet there's always more work to be done, this massive crime scene that stretches through Mayfair tonight certainly is, in our hearts, something that we all share, the tough moment and the resiliency to keep going.
Definitely a tough, difficult night for the city. But as Governor Shapiro said earlier tonight, Joe, we saw the best of Philly. So many people and the first responders, they're stepping up to help in this time of need this evening. Thank you.
We appreciate you.
Yes, thank you,
Thank
Joe.
you for your insight and all you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as you've seen in some of the video that we have been showing, it's been raining on and off all day, and the rain was in the area at the time of the crash. And Grant Gilmore joins us now from the Hyundai Next Weather Sphere.
Good evening, guys. Yeah, raining all day, but one thing that you may have noticed was the fact that it was relatively mild out there. And we've got this system that's moving through. It's going to be a much cooler day tomorrow. But let's talk about those weather conditions leading right up to the crash. I'm going to show you the radar right there at 6:07 this evening. You've got light rain over the northeast Philadelphia National Airport reporting those light rain showers, kind of a mist in the area with some a little bit heavier rainfall into South Jersey. Fast forward to now, temperatures are actually 52 degrees. Light rain still in the area with that more moderate rain pushing off to the east. But that's just the rain and the temperature. These weather stations at the airport there, the Northeast Philadelphia Airport, reported the cloud cover, and you probably noticed just how low that cloud cover was today. Overcast skies right at 5:54. Again, the crash happened at 6:07, so those overcast skies with that cloud deck down to 400 feet, just showing you how low the clouds were right up to the point of when that plane was flying and ultimately crashing over the Northeast. Now, this image right here, this was posted by Flight Radar 24 on X earlier this evening, and this is the flight tracker, the blue line indicating the flight altitude of the aircraft, and then that yellow line showing you the timeline of the flight speed. All right, so first I want to talk about the altitude of the plane. Right there, it reached a maximum altitude of 1,650 feet. So we know, based upon those weather conditions, the plane flew up through that low cloud deck and was likely flying through almost zero visibility, needing to rely on those instruments in the cabin of the cockpit. Now, the time of the crash, 6:07. That's represented there in this timeline. Notice that blue line. Again, that blue line is the altitude of the plane. See how it then dramatically begins to drop after initial ascent, after takeoff. Meanwhile, the yellow line is the speed of the aircraft, the ground speed, 242 knots. That translates to 290 or 279 miles per hour as that plane is rapidly dropping out of the air. And that's when we ultimately know what happened, the plane crash at 6:07. But last check, according to Flight Radar 24, that plane was traveling at 279 miles per hour as it descended to the earth. So just telling you the facts of what we have right here. Again, going back to those weather conditions, I do want to show you, it is, you know, it's not the best of weather conditions, but it's certainly not the worst either. The wind speeds were only around 10 miles per hour before and after the crash. The visibility wasn't bad either. It was about 5 or 6 miles there on the ground. But once you get up to that 400 feet level, which is about 35 stories high, so that's about halfway up some of the buildings in Center City, Philadelphia. That's how low that cloud cover was. So the clouds were low, and then once that plane climbed up into that cloud cover, they probably lost all their visual abilities and then needed to require and rely on their instruments, at which they would hopefully be able to tell them how level they are with that artificial horizon on the cockpit there on the instruments. So those are the weather conditions. We showed you the timeline of what the flight tracker indicated, Yuki and Janelle. I mean, it is scary to look at that. 279 miles per hour. That plane was traveling as it raced toward the Earth's surface.
And Grant, thank you. Thank you so much. It has been a night of bringing you some very difficult news, but we are wrapping up our coverage of tonight's plane crash for now. As we move into the month of February, we won't forget what happened, January 31st, 2025.
It has been heartbreaking as we've watched these details in the video and specifics about this accident unfold, but we will continue our reports from the scene and have the latest for.
At least 6 people are dead and multiple others are injured after a medical jet crashed into a busy suburban neighborhood outside of Philadelphia earlier this evening. Officials on the ground estimating that death toll will only continue to grow as the investigation continues. This dash cam footage shows the plane plummeting from the sky, crashing to the ground, followed by that massive explosion you're seeing shortly after. According to the